Hi there, Johnny here from johnnylipsonstudios.co.uk, and welcome to part 3 of my compression mini-series, which is part of my Mixing Tips series, the ongoing series where I'm basically just taking people like you through all the kind of mixing tips that I have learned over the years that people have taught me that have helped me take my mixes onto the next level. And help me just gain experience faster and move forward faster. So in this video, we are going to look at two forms of compression techniques. One is stacking compressors, which I tend to only do on vocals. I don't really do it on anything else, and I don't do it that often. I only do it if the song is telling me to do it. And most of the time that doesn't really happen because most of the music that I mix is mostly jazz or acoustic music of some kind, so I'm not really needing to do that. I'm tending to, with those kind of musics, be quite sparing with compression. So I only really do it if the song tells me to. And in this particular case, this particular song is my own song called Counting the Days from my Belonging to Tomorrow EP. And it's got, as you will hear in just a moment, it's got quite a driving funk groove to it, so it needed that vocal to be right up front and in your face, so stacking compressors was the way to go, so that's what I did. The other technique is parallel compression, and I tend to only do this on drums, mostly these days just on kick and snare and maybe a little bit of the toms. So I tend to do pre-fade ascends over here, which is what this orange line is. Blue ones, they are post-fader. Sends, these orange ones are pre-fader, so basically this is being sent before it hits this fader, which means I can adjust this fader to whatever I want and it's not going to affect what is being sent to, in this case over here, the P drums bus. And basically I'm just sending the drums, I'm not sending the cymbals. Because if I parallel compress cymbals, you tend to get kind of too much of a pumping thing going on with the cymbals, which for some styles of music might be desirable, but for this style, nah, not going to want to do that. So just sending the kick and the snare, and there's a little bit of toms going there as well. So we will look at parallel compression in just a minute, but what I want to start off looking at is the vocal and stacking compressors. Stacking compressors is actually really quite simple to do, and it's very effective. You basically set up your first compressor with only a couple of dB, 2, 3 or so of compression, not much, with a sort of fast-ish attack, fast release, because I want to allow some transient through, but I also want to get the compressor out of the way for, particularly with this style of music, because it's quite fast and the vocal is very rhythmic. I want to get the compressor out of the way for the next lyric, the next syllable. So fast release. And then for the second compressor, you do exactly the same. You can, for your second compressor, if you want, you can get the attack time really fast and slow the release a little bit. So basically you are not compressing the transient, you're compressing the body of the signal instead, because the first compressor is allowing the transient through, and then this one would be compressing the compressed signal at the front end of the signal. So you can do it that way. I've basically just copied the compressor. And the effect is that you have the vocal just come a bit more forward, and each syllable of each lyric becomes a lot more clear and doesn't get buried. And it means that I have to do less automation of the vocal because the compressor is bringing the vocal much more forward. So let's have a listen to the verse and you'll see what I mean. And I'm going to flip this compressor, the second compressor, on and off, and you can hear what it does to the vocal.
Hanging tough in this darkest hour, standing alone when the foe has the
switch it off.
We'll never falter. We cry out at the altar, digging deep.
Back on.
With all of our might, we'll make it through this blackest of nights. We'll never crumble.
And off.
Even if we stumble.
Back on for the chorus.
Counting the days till the little man comes. Counting the flames as the night sky hums. Counting the times the ground above me shakes.
And off.
For sanity's sake.
So you should have been able to hear there that every time I was flipping this compressor on, the vocal gave the impression of being a little bit more forward in the mix, and there was a lot more clarity. So that's the stacking compressors technique. It's very, very cool. It's very, very helpful, particularly with this style of music when you need that vocal to be nice and upfront. So that's that. The other thing that I was going to show you, which I talked about at the beginning briefly, was parallel compression and how it works, particularly as it relates to drums. So what I have here is on my drums channel here, I have drums and I have cymbals. I've separated them out. And what I've done is I've done a pre-fade ascend, this sort of orangey yellowy line here tells me that it's pre-fader, which basically means that the signal comes in here, and before it hits this fader, a copy is being sent over here to my P drums bus. And what I have going through that is basically kick, snare, and a little bit of toms. I don't send the cymbals through there because it tends to pump the cymbals, which is not a nice effect, as I said. So I have the compressor set very aggressive, 10:1 ratio, lowish threshold, slow attack, faster release, and I've made up some of the gain, so it's a bit, the compressor is balanced still. And what this does, what parallel compression does, is it brings the kick and the snare drum forward in the mix and gives them a lot more punch and a lot more power. And particularly with the kick drum, particularly in this song, because the kick drum and the bass are playing mostly exactly the same rhythm, the kick drum can get buried by the bass guitar and vice versa. So I needed some way to be able to get that kick drum to be felt more and heard more, and so parallel compression was the way to go with this. The added benefit was that it really brought the snare drum nice and forward as well, and gave that a lot of smack and punch and definition. So I'm going to, again, I'm going to play the audio from the verse, and we heard it actually engaged there, so I'm just going to flip it on and off, and you'll be able to hear the difference. Okay, so here we go. Parallel compression on.
Standing alone when the foe has the power. We'll never falter.
And
cry out at the altar. Digging deep with all of our might.
Down.
Make it through this blackest of nights. We'll never crumble. Even if we stumble.
Off.
Counting the flames as the night sky hums. Counting the times the ground above me shakes.
And off.
Counting for sanity's sake.
And on. So hopefully you're able to hear there the difference that the parallel drum compression brought to the drum sound there. The kick and the snare come a lot more forward, a lot more impactful, a lot clearer, and it just, without it, it just seemed to me anyway, it seemed to me like the drums kind of lacked intensity. So bringing the parallel bus in gave the drums a lot more intensity, a lot more drive, and helped propel this song forward. So the combination of the stacked compressors, actually, which I forgot to switch back on, the stacked compressors on the vocal and the parallel compression on the drums means that this song now has a lot more forward motion. So I'm going to play it again with the parallel and stacked compressors back in. Okay, so we can hear the whole thing with those compression techniques engaged.
Hanging tough in this darkest hour, standing alone when the foe has the power. We'll never falter, we cry out at the altar, digging deep with all of our might. We'll make it through this blackest of nights. We'll never crumble, even if we stumble. Counting the days till the little man comes, counting the flames as the night sky hums, counting the times the ground above me shakes.
Okay, so there you have it. Now, just as we listened just there, the other thing I noticed was the ghosted notes in the snare drum were brought up a little bit as well by the parallel compression, which I thought was really nice, added a sense of, an extra sense of propulsion going forward with the drums, and just that extra layer of rhythmic complexity, which is really beneficial. So there you go. Stacking compressors on the vocal, parallel compression on the drums. With the right style of music, these can be really effective techniques. As I say, I don't do them very much or very often, so it's easy for me anyway for these techniques to get a little bit rusty, because I don't tend to do them very often. But certainly with this song, very useful. Gave the song an extra sense of punch and forward motion, which is what I really wanted for this song. So there you have it. That brings to an end my 3-part compression series. Next, I think we're going to dive into the world of ambient effects. So we'll be looking at reverbs and delays and that kind of thing, and some of the tricks and techniques that I've learned over the years that can just do some really cool things, particularly to vocals, but also to other solo instruments that you might want to feature. I'm not a heavy reverb user, but occasionally there are times when you can actually do really creative things with reverb to create a particular effect to bring out the mood or the emotion or the lyric of a song. So that's what's going to come up next. So Ambient Effects is going to be the next mini-series within our Mixing Tips series. So until next time, cheers for now.